If you look closely at the city of Nogales, you'll notice a rusty metal fence running right through the middle of it. It's a single, continuous urban area, cut directly in half. North of the fence is Nogales, Arizona. The average household here makes about $30,000 a year. Most residents have high school diplomas, crime is relatively low, and seniors have access to Medicare. Step just a few feet south of the fence, and you are in Nogales, Sonora, Mexico. Here, the average income drops by 2/3. Crime is high, infant mortality is a constant worry, and politicians routinely siphon off public funds. You can't explain this gap by pointing to the environment. The people on both sides of this fence share the exact same ancestors, they listen to the same music, and they deal with the exact same climate and local diseases. The difference isn't the land, and it isn't the people. That physical wall represents an invisible line between two completely different sets of rules. It is an ongoing, real-world experiment proving that wealth and poverty are dictated by human-made institutions. For centuries, the dominant explanation for global inequality was geography. The assumption was that hot, tropical climates naturally breed disease, poor soil, and stagnant economies, while temperate climates foster hard work and innovation. This map displays the global distribution of GDP in 2008. The dark areas represent the poorest countries in the world, and there is an undeniable concentration of poverty right around the equator. But correlation is not causation. 500 years ago, the tropical regions of the Americas were home to the massive, highly complex civilizations of the Aztecs and Incas. They built sprawling road networks and administered large economies. Meanwhile, the temperate zones to the north and south were sparsely populated by much poorer groups. That historical wealth inverted. The places that were richest became the poorest, meaning nature did not dictate their modern fate. The true driver of inequality was the set of rules introduced when Europeans colonized the Americas. In the early 1500s, Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Americas. They deliberately targeted the most densely populated, wealthy empires they could find. Their strategy was brutally consistent: capture the indigenous leader, seize the empire's accumulated gold, and then hijack the existing tax system to force the local population to mine for more. This map shows the mita, a forced labor system the Spanish imposed to extract silver. This enormous catchment area covers hundreds of thousands of square miles. The male population inside was forced to march directly into the treacherous mines of Potosí. This blueprint created what economists call extractive institutions. The entire legal structure was designed to push the living standards of the masses down to a bare subsistence level, extracting every ounce of excess wealth to enrich a tiny, powerful elite. When the English arrived in Jamestown in 1607, they fully intended to run the exact same playbook of plunder and coerced labor. But as this map of population density in the year 1500 shows, they had a problem. The English landed in an area with barely any people and absolutely no gold. Without an existing population to exploit, the Virginia Company tried to force their own English settlers to work for meager company rations. It failed spectacularly. By the winter of 1609, the settlers refused to work, and the colony began to starve to death. To survive, the leadership had to pivot. They realized they couldn't force people to work on an empty stomach, so they offered them incentives instead. They gave the settlers private plots of land, clear property rights, and crucially, a voice in a newly formed political assembly. Out of pure desperation, they birthed inclusive institutions. By distributing political rights broadly, they created an economic system where everyday people had the motivation to actually work, invest, and build for themselves. Fast forward to the 19th century. In the United States, these inclusive institutions provided fertile ground for the Industrial Revolution to take root and spread rapidly. Strong patent laws and a fiercely competitive banking sector meant that even someone born into a modest family with very little formal education, like Thomas Edison, could secure a low-interest loan, protect his ideas, and build a massive fortune through pure innovation. Down in Mexico, the legacy of extraction compounded in the opposite direction. Because the state controlled highly centralized wealth, elites spent a century fighting bloody civil wars just to control the government. Leaders like Porfirio Diaz secured their power by actively blocking economic competition. They handed out lucrative banking and land monopolies to their political allies, cutting everyday citizens out of the economy entirely. The trajectory split. The United States locked into a self-reinforcing cycle of widespread prosperity, while Latin America became trapped in a cycle of inequality, instability, and economic stagnation. You can see the mechanics of these rules today by looking at how the ultra-wealthy build their fortunes in both systems. In the US, Bill Gates became a billionaire by founding a company that created new technology and massively increased productivity. But when Microsoft grew too powerful and tried to limit competition, the US government sued him under antitrust laws. In Mexico, Carlos Slim became one of the richest men in the world not by inventing a new product, but by acquiring the national telecommunications monopoly from the state. He built his wealth by actively crushing his competitors and charging high prices. Whenever regulators tried to limit his dominance, Slim deployed a Mexican legal petition known as an amparo. It is effectively a customized loophole, allowing well-connected monopolies to bypass laws that apply to everyone else. Tellingly, when Slim attempted those same monopolistic tactics in the US market, a Dallas court swiftly fined his company over $400 million. Human behavior adapts to the rules of the institutions they operate within, which brings us back to the wall dividing Nogales. It is not a geographic boundary. It is the exact collision point of two historical trajectories. To the south is the legacy of forced extraction set in motion by Pizarro. To the north, the legacy of incentivized labor forced upon John Smith. Whether we are looking at Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, or North Korea, extreme poverty is a man-made condition. To eradicate it, we do not need to fix geography or alter cultures. It requires dismantling monopolies of political power and building institutions that actually include and empower the masses.